Hey everyone,
Okay.
I'm Summer Camper and I'm your host of Summer in Life. Today we are talking with Shay Koloff, one of our experts that spoke to us a few weeks ago, actually, all about authenticity. So we're bringing her back here today for our podcast that's going to be focused on confidence, community, and authenticity, and really talk about those lessons from looking inwards and finding those true, genuine qualities of yourself and making sure you can project that forward and put your best foot forward when you're being that founder. So let's welcome Shay. Hey Shay, how are you?
Hello, I am doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to have you here and bring you back for the community to hear more from you. For those that have not met you before, though, can you tell them a little more about yourself?
Ma'am, so I am a herbalist. I've been doing this for since 2020. Gosh, I don't even know, 2017. And I've been doing business for a while. So my background has been mostly, independent work, entrepreneurial work. I've done a lot of things with comes to um, workshops for helping people with herbal items that they can make for themselves. I picked a really pretty spot, so I have people trying to talk to me too at the same time. But the majority of my work has been with the community, with people making herbal items, consultations, and a lot of that has trickled into helping people outside of that with business consultation, building businesses, and things of that nature. So a lot of my background has been mainly community based, wellness based, surrounded around, kind of self empowerment mostly. And that's kind of how I got started in in the community as a whole.
Yes, I loved your story. Even when you shared it with us, one of the pieces that stuck with me a lot was that kind of thought of, oh, I'm not a herbalist yet. Like I only know this many herbs, and to be a herbalist, I need to know, this many herbs. And I feel like a lot of founders, a lot of high achievers, like they hold that high kind of standard of like what it takes to call themselves or to give themselves that credit, even though they put in a lot of that work. Can you share more about that piece of your journey?
Yeah. So like you said, I've met a lot of people who do different types of work, different fields, right? A lot of people typically, some of them are trades. And a lot of times we typically put ourselves in that position where we feel if we're not, classically trained or we have some type of license or degree, depending on what it is, that we're not valid enough to do that thing, or we're not valid enough to share with people like our talents. In some cases, I've run into people in my herbal courses who want to take my herbal classes. A lot of them will say like, oh, I've done herbal work before, or I've worked with herbalism in the past, but I don't consider myself an herbalist. And I say, well, why? Because at the end of the day, if you're practicing, if you're putting in the time and you're, putting together um, that practice for yourself, then that also can translate into you having a build on your own trades. So you can, not with a label necessarily, people don't necessarily have to have a label to make themselves feel better or anything like that, or to make themselves feel like they're a professional of some sort. But just knowing that like what time you put into your practice matters. And so like for, a classically trained chef, or for a artist, or for someone who has a passion for, track or volleyball, right? All of those things take practice. And so when you're taking the time to put in practice and you're taking the time to put in like your own, energy for honing the skill, that is what helps you build your your next steps to who you want to be. And so that really helps you step into your authenticity. And I know that that's been a lot of what I teach in some of my classes, but it's mainly about the practice and how you translate that into yourself. So I've done a lot of that with my own practice. Obviously, I've taken classes. I've done a lot of hands-on work. but over the period of time that I put into everything that I've done, that's what has kind of helped me build into, this is who I am. This is my authentic self. This is my brand. So that is a part of how you build who you are.
Yes. I mean, I think it's something that you need to grow into, like kind of how you said, when life happens and all these kind of pressures and influences and maybe you see people doing things one way, maybe things are going really well for them while they're doing things that way, and you might step outside of your authenticity. But I agree, like on my path, I've seen I'm in my element, like when I'm in my essence and exuding my essence. And my favorite quote has become, you're being your best when you're being yourself, for sure.
Yes, I agree with that 100%.
So when was the biggest aha moment or like that turning point for you when you were like, authenticity is essential, it's not an option?
I think it was when I had my first few years of business and I was having a really hard time really grasping my audience, who I wanted to work with, how I was going to kind of build that foundation for making myself known for a period of time. I was, looking at other companies, I was looking at other people who were doing business, and I was kind of trying to model myself after those people, kind of like what were they doing or how were they approaching their audience or how were they finding their people to sell to. And it was really when I kind of stepped into TikTok, actually, because I wasn't a face person, right? Like when you're trying to connect to your people, a lot of connection comes from words. A lot of connection comes from seeing you and being able to connect to the person that is actually selling to you, right? So I had a hard time doing that at first because I wasn't 100% certain how I wanted to kind of approach my audience. So at first I started out with maybe sharing different like coupon codes, or maybe I started out with sharing about like mail days and trying to kind of show like, oh, look at all these people buying things for me, things like that, right? But it didn't feel authentic. It felt more like I was just trying to kind of show off my business being successful, and that necessarily wasn't a draw to get like who I actually needed to get to my audience, and how to actually connect to myself, doing that in a way that was authentic so that it didn't feel like a forced thing, or that I was trying to what do you call it, fabricate, right? Kind of like this persona for the audience. So when I started stepping into like my TikTok and really opening up a little bit more into showing, my processes and who I really am and what I really truly believe, and talking a little bit about like my background in herbalism, that's when it really shifted and I started to get more authentic, traction, and audiences kind of listening to me because I was actually sharing more of my personal journey and being more authentic in the way of education and telling people why I do the things that I'm doing. So it was more about, herbalism isn't a one size fit all. It's not meant to just be, I make an item, you buy it, and you feel better. It's a very long drawn out thing and so I started educating people a little bit more about like different herbs they could use for different things, or sharing with them a little bit about, holistic practices. And I started to get a lot more people kind of drawn to me, which helped me more with also realizing that who I am is a person who is very, passionate about, herbal health, holistic health, helping others. And that really translated in my messages when I started actually sharing more of who I really am in my content.
That is so beautiful that going into your authenticity, you're learning more and more like about yourself and being able to be more authentic in that type of way. As you learn more
Yeah,
about yourself, you can like pour more into those things. So it's kind of like you just got to start. Like it's like the chicken and the egg almost. Like you have to start being yourself and being genuine and just kind of do that trial and error. Another thing that I noticed
exactly.
in that story is like you noticed something was not on track and you had that bravery to pivot in something else and say like, okay, this actually is not working. A lot of us don't like that. They're gonna like kind of like, I'm gonna make this plan work, But you're like, no, I'm gonna pivot And that took a lot of bravery as well. And I was even just talking to one of my clients about that shift. He recently just took that brave shift as well. And he's like, wait, like, this isn't working. I'm like, man, you did this 2 weeks ago. Give yourself a little time, be a little patient. So could you even talk a little bit about that for some of our people that like it right now? They have the idea, they know it's great. It's like, I want to see the results today.
Yeah, yeah. It's any business, any idea, any plan, it takes time, it takes practice, and there's really no overnight aha success. I know sometimes that does happen for some people, but I think we all have that idea that is supposed to happen for us, that we put out this great idea, we put out this great prototype. And everybody's supposed to just go, that's amazing. And then now you've got like a million, yeah, you've got like $1 million and a million views and a million, customers overnight. But it doesn't happen that way. And a lot of people get, very discouraged, or they get very disappointed about slow progress. But when we look at the big picture of how being successful really happens, it is literally the game of the turtle and the rabbit, right? We all know that story. When we take the time to take every step, to put in every action, to truly just drag our way across that finish line, right? It's not about who did it faster. It's about, every step that you took, being diligent about the plan, and really putting in the time. Most businesses don't take off until after year 7.
Oof.
Year 7. That means that you have to put in 7 years of hard work, sweat, tears, blood, hopes, dreams, refinance mortgages, all the things. And you're looking around like, okay, maybe I was crazy. By year 5, you're thinking, maybe I was crazy. I done only made half of my investments back. I barely got clients, and people start to wonder like, okay, like, was this worth it? If it's something that you truly love, if your why is about your passion, about what the bigger picture is, you're not really paying attention to those smaller steps in between, because the big picture is what really at the end of the day is the finish line. And everything in between is just, the little obstacle in the way. It's just a little stick. It's just a little rock, right? That you have to kind of cross over, or you have to get around in order to get to that next step. So it's all about the perseverance is the key to the game. The perseverance is the key to the game. You may have bad days, you may have bad months, you may have bad years where you have to take, time to kind of resteady yourself, refocus, repivot. But all of those little things lead up to getting you to that end goal. So I always tell people, try to focus on the end goal. Try to focus on, if you do something, you try something, it doesn't work, try something else, right? Continue to be resilient, continue to be resourceful, continue to try different things, because you're only boxing yourself in by maybe trying only one approach to a certain way, a certain idea, or maybe only one idea. There are many different ways to get to where you need to go, and there isn't a straight line to get there.
It does take a lot of resilience,
Yeah.
A lot of patience, and both of those are things you need to practice. Honestly, you need to build those up. I'm not naturally a patient person. I'm still not really that patient of a person. And even hearing you say that 7 years, I'm 3, and I'm just like, oh dang, come on, girl. Like it takes a lot, and not just the motivation that inside that you need to kind of bring yourself up, because you're the only one seeing all the time and effort and energy you're putting into this to see the results that you might not like necessarily. But sometimes even that feeling of like imposter syndrome might come up of like, is this even what I should be doing? Maybe it's not working because it's not for me. And even because we were both at the block, sorry, I forgot to even say that in your intro, how we were both on the blocks, different seasons, but that's how we got connected together. That came up a lot. The Blocks was a reality show Shay and I were both on, that brought together founders, entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, some of them. It was an amazing experience. Bringing them all together, over 100 of them there. And even some of the people that like, they're making millions of dollars in their business, they're talking about like, they don't think they're good enough. That imposter syndrome. So what are your thoughts on that? What is your takes on how people can identify and even overcome some of that?
Well, imposter syndrome is really just a state of mind, right? It's our belief that we're not good enough, or that we haven't done enough, or that, there's this list of things that we're supposed to check off and we haven't checked every box. So that doesn't make us, who we are, right? A lot of that also comes from this society that we've built around external validation. It's hard to feel like you can believe in yourself because we have social media. We have all of these kind of external factors that tell us what our worth is. So when we post an idea or we make a beautiful picture or a reel about our business and we only get 3 likes or we only get, so much interaction, that starts to dwindle on our, you know, that motivation to keep going, because you start to feel less than, and then that starts to make you play that in your mind, like, am I good enough? Is this even a good idea? Do people even want to see me succeed? And a lot of times we have to remember that most of the people that in your inner circle, all those people that are, the closest to you, are not going to always be the very first people that give you that validation. And the idea that we have that it comes from, people telling us that we have to have a certain X, Y, and Z, that's not really, what makes you legit. What makes you legit is your belief in yourself, right? The time, effort, energy that you put in, because like you said, nobody knows what you're doing. Nobody knows what the behind the scenes and, the days that you had to do whatever, X, Y, Z, you had to do all that stuff that nobody saw, the bad days, the good days. But at the end of the day, what makes you an entrepreneur, what makes you who you are, or what makes you an authentic person is your belief in yourself. So I wake up every day and I say, hey, like, I am who I am, right? I'm a winner. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not like everybody else. I have these ideas. I have this mind that is, not like one track. I know that I'm meant for greatness. And those are things that I try to remind myself about, because it can be hard. Like I said, this world is literally, we're not taught growing up how much we should believe in ourselves, right? A lot of times it comes into play where we tend to always look for someone else to tell us that we're doing great, or someone else to say, that was amazing, I'm proud of you. Why can't we do that for ourselves? And I think that that's what helps you feed into that imposter syndrome. That goes away when you start to see you and believe in you, right? Feed into you, build yourself up. Tell yourself like, hey, like, I know that maybe like not a lot of people know about this right now or believe in this right now, but they will. And that is kind of how you continue to keep going. It only takes that one person or that one moment, that one specific special kismet time for things to align and for everything to change. And you'll never get to that point if you're constantly doubting yourself or kind of putting your own blocker in your way. We like to do that a lot. We tend to block our own blessings or block our own motivations, our own momentum, because we think to ourselves, well, this is crazy. Nobody believes in me. Nobody supports me. All of this stuff, the things that we tell ourselves. And at the end of the day, those blockers are meant to be speed bumps. They're meant to just be a moment and you cross over them. Because we all have those fears. We all have those doubts. We all have those moments of, I'm not sure I am who I say I am. But you have to kind of start to really, you fake it till you make it. And I know like a lot of people have heard that, but it really does matter. Like wake up every day and you say, I am that person. I am the chef. I am the motivational speaker. I am this, I am that. And the more that you start to tell yourself that, the more that you believe it, because words are power. And that's what we try to get externally from others that we need to start doing for ourselves.
Absolutely. And I mean, even as you're saying this, I didn't think I was doing this at the time, but it's all like coming together. Because the main things I would look at for like our are we doing well are these social media metrics, you know, like the reach, the likes, the comments, engagement, and all these type of things. And it wasn't really hitting like that. But as I'm talking to other coaches, like the social media isn't really like their hot spot anyway. It's like, okay, then how do you know? How do you reach these people? What are you looking at? And you do need to be more creative. But for me, what I ended up doing is like going back to my own values and my own beliefs of like what I think success is, and redefining my metrics based off of those instead of like all the social media. So it's like, what is actually important for Sprout? Like, I want to build a community. Does it matter how many people are liking us? I'd rather have like people come to the events, you know, like you don't have to like the flyer, but maybe show up, right? Like that is a more important metric to me. Like I want people to know that they can show up here and meet like-minded folks that they can collaborate with, they can vent to, they can celebrate with, they can say, hey, I just got my new business card. I heard you were looking for a business card guy. Like, hey, check out, like, you know, check it out. You know, we can all grow together. So I've redefined I always break my planning into these 90-day blocks. And I've redefined the metrics for, is this 90 days successful? And it's all around, what do I want Sprout to be? And how do the metrics reflect that? It's been a cool journey. It's been an interesting journey because it's also a lot of perfectionism, of course. We talked about that in the session as well. And I think a lot of us go through this, similar to the imposter syndrome, but like maybe it could be fueled from something else, you know, with the perfectionism, and it holds a lot of us back actually. And I'm wondering if you've had any experiences with perfectionism through your journey that you want to share with us today.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, at the beginning, right, especially in the way of creating items, you want things to be a certain way and you expect for things to be a certain way. So like for me, when I started making items, I was thinking like, oh, like I do all the research and I have all this knowledge, you know, they should come out perfect. There's still time. You start to wonder, like, you know, trial and error. There were many times that I would say, like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm good enough to do this. I'm qualified enough to do this. I don't know if I have enough information or enough knowledge to do this. And a lot of doubt, right? Because perfectionism is really also geared in and kind of comes from the same place of self-doubt and not really knowing if you're good enough for something. Wanting to be good enough for something, right? That's kind of like the whole purpose of it, is like you're trying to strive to be like your best self. And in every case, you want to be the best in every scenario. But I have those moments where I remind myself that I am human. And if you're a parent, this is one of the easiest times, like when you're reminded of how much like it takes to become a human adult, right? When I look at my child, I think about times when I would say something and she would look at me and be like, Mommy, what's that? Right? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot that you've never even lived that life. You don't even know what that is. You don't have any clue like what a golf course is, whatever. You think to yourself like, oh yeah, I have to teach, you know, this little person. So it's the same with us, right? Why are we so hard on ourselves when we don't get something right, or when we don't know everything, or when we, you know, don't have the answers to all the questions? We beat ourselves up about that. And I remind myself that I am only human. My job here on this earth is not to be perfect. My job on this earth is to learn, is to grow, is to evolve, is to shift, is to expand, to change. And I can't do any of that if I'm constantly putting myself on this pedestal for like a cat, saying, well, I should know everything. I should be the best at everything. I should, you know, be perfect. So I always try to tell people to remind yourself that you are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to make changes. You are allowed to be flexible. You're also allowed to go through evolutions, right? You're not going to be the same person that you are now, that you were 10 years ago, that you're going to be in 10 years from now. And a lot of people don't, you know, we have a hard time sometimes with accepting change, but a part accepting change is also accepting those small, allowing those small areas for flaws, and for like the like a waiver, to happen in between those layers, where not everything is always perfect, but there are those times for growth and times for lessons and times for learning. So I try to remind myself that I am allowed to have those times, because life is meant to be lived and meant to be learned through. So there are those things that I will master. There are those things that I will be great at. There are those things that I will be perfect at here and there, but I'm not going to always be perfect. And if people can just give themselves a little bit more leeway in those ways of thinking, then that will really help, going forward with when you're taking your next step into something, or you're trying to take a leap of faith, or trying something new, reminding yourself that give yourself a reverse to that small child inside where you used to be when you were 6 or 7 years old, and remember that in those times when you needed grace, right, from your parents or from the person who was teaching you, or from whoever was giving you that lesson, that's your moment too, to give yourself some grace, to say, okay, let me slow down and realize I'm not an expert at this. And that it's okay for me to, make mistakes and to learn how to do this properly, and be okay with that. I think more people just need to be more kind to themselves. Honestly, it comes down to kindness for yourself, because we're really hard on ourselves as people, and we're not reminded very often of how important it is to not be so hard on ourselves, about just being a person, just being a human person in this daily life, with all of the external factors, with everything going on. It's hard enough, and then you take that and you turn it internal, and you make it harder on yourself by not being kind, right? Just starting with self and realizing that you first were not chosen to be on this earth to be another, just another person to suffer, right? There's a reason, there's a gift, there's a calling to our being on this planet. And we have to just be more kind to ourselves in these times, because there's already enough going on. The last thing that we need is to double down on ourselves and say, well, I'm not perfect, so I don't deserve, X, Y, Z. We deserve it all. You deserve it all, whether you're homeless, whether you don't have a car, whether you make $16 an hour, whether you make $5 an hour, whether you walk every day, whether you wash your clothes at the laundromat, whether you live in a one-bedroom apartment, whether you live in a trailer. You deserve to have it all. And we need to be more mindful of that. And we deserve to be, kinder to ourselves, so that we don't have to feel so stressed about being perfect, or about getting to the next level, or about being like the next, person that's next to us and they're doing great. Why can't I be that person? You can be, but it all starts with the mind, and it starts with taking steps, and it starts with, being more kind, being more gracious to ourselves. So that is really what, I think breaks down perfectionism for me, is just giving myself that empathy, honestly, giving it to myself and saying, like, you know what, I'm not perfect, and I don't always have great days, and I'm not going to always be the smartest person, or always know what to do, or always do the right thing all the time. I'm not going to always be that person, and that's okay. So it starts with just saying it is okay. And that breaks down, the feelings of just wanting to be perfect, of just wanting everything to always be, on cue, going my way, the vision I had for myself. Another one is dropping expectations too. Dropping expectations. Those are just a setup for a headache, a setup for disappointment, a setup for, making yourself sad, right? Having expectations of, well, if I do this, I should expect that this happens. If I do this, this should happen, or I should have this afterwards, right? I go into everything with no expectation. And that helps so much with my perfectionism, right? Looking at a project, and instead of telling myself, I need to get all of that done by 8 o'clock tonight, I tell myself I'm going to do the best that I can, the most that I can, in the most efficient way that I can. And if I don't finish by 8 o'clock tonight, that is okay. But at least I did the majority of what I could, so that the next day, right, I don't have as much to do as I did the day before. And it's just little things like that, breaking up our thought process of saying, like, we have to do something, honestly, in an unrealistic time frame as well. We also give ourselves these unrealistic expectations too. and expect for ourselves to say, well, if I do this, I should have this by this date or by this month or by this year, right? And those are not, you can't, yeah, there's no way that you're going to be able to predict those things. You also are not going to be able to control how that goes, right? So breaking down your perfectionism all starts with, being more kind to yourself, dropping expectations, being realistic, right? And only focusing on what's in your control. What's in your control? Your control. That means nobody else, what they do, how they react, what they give or don't give. That has nothing to do with you. What you're doing and what you put out, right, is all that matters. And that is where we should focus a little bit more, right, on what's in our control. Those key components right there have really helped me with perfectionism over time, because I used to be so hard on myself, especially at the beginning of business. I used to say like, well, why am I not, blah, 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 like, why don't I have this and that? Blah, 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 blah. I did all this and I'm not getting 15 sales. And I would be so hard on myself about these things. And then I started to really just scale back and say, you know what? There's people out there that love what I do. It may not be 100,000. It may not be 500,000. But there's a small amount that love what I do, right? And I love what I do. And I'm not perfect, but I do what I can. And the things that are in my control, I do them well. And the things that are out of my control, I let them go. And I don't have expectations for how a rollout is going to go, or for how a new product is going to sell, or for how I may be perceived in a certain space. So all of those things, when we drop what's out of our control, that also helps, with easing that stress, right? Because who's putting that on you? Mm-hmm. Mostly us, mostly ourselves.
So you mentioned about being kind to yourself, especially when it's the first time you're doing these things. Naturally, we have these high expectations, as you said, unrealistic sometimes too, as I can relate with. But can you share moments where maybe you didn't show up the way you wanted to? You might have even been embarrassed, like what did that teach you and how did you work through that specifically?
Yeah, there was times in the past that I've had, like, let's say vending shows. I used to do vending a couple of years ago, where I would, make all my products and bring them to a space and have all these people walk by and kind of like, like that first really interaction with selling. And there were a few times when I would get ready for a show, I wouldn't have all of the products that I wanted, or let's say maybe I was going to bring a certain amount of products. I didn't bring everything that I wanted to have. Maybe my table wasn't as robust as I wanted it to be. And there were times that maybe I was embarrassed. There was actually specifically a story where I remember I had a very limited amount of product. I think I went to a show and I did not have as much stuff as I would have liked to have. I think I probably had maybe, a good dozen of all of the things that I typically had on the table, but, I wanted to have more. And I just remember feeling so embarrassed, thinking like, oh, I don't think that it looks like enough. I was kind of skimpy. I don't know if it's going to really maybe it's going to come off like I'm like amateur, or like that I'm, that I didn't prepare well or something like that. But when the show actually started, I had so many people that came over. I think I sold out within the first hour. And then, I started to feel bad, because then I thought, oh, well, I have like 2 hours left of this event and I don't have anything to sell. And then it started to just kind of turn into this whole like, well, people were coming over anyway because my table was empty. And they were like, well, dang, you did good. What did you have? I wanted to know what you had. Can I get a card? Can I find out what your website was? And I'm like, oh, okay. So even in that time when I was thinking, oh, people are going to think like, what? Like, she has an empty table. She didn't bring enough stuff. It really was the opposite. It was almost like I sold out everything so quickly that people were like, oh, it has to be good. What does she have? And then it was like I was even more busy without things on the table than I was with things on the table. And it's like just dropping that expectation, right, of me thinking, oh, like people are going to think this one way of me. And it really was the opposite of that. So having that openness, right? If I would have just went in with the mindset of, this may not be what I had wanted, but it's what I got, And if I just remain positive, at least selling what I had will be something, right? And I wasn't even thinking that when I walked in. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I could sell out. I was thinking about the fact that, like, I just may not have enough, and people may not think I have enough, and my table looks skimpy, and it doesn't, like, it wasn't full enough or whatever. It wasn't a problem for people. In the end, if anything, it kind of made my table seem more simple, right? It made it seem more direct and concise. You didn't have like 15,000 things you were looking at on the table. You only had like, maybe like a handful of maybe 6 to 8 items. And that was enough for people to be able to directly identify what they wanted and pick it out and then purchase. And then by then it was like, okay, I sold out within the first hour. And everybody just thought like, oh, well then crap, she must be great. So it was, it's just that expectation of what you hold for yourself, because you really don't have a clue how the entire experience will go.
It's interesting. I recently read a book called How to Hold a Cockroach. And when I saw it, I'm like, ew, why would I hold a cockroach? So naturally, I have to get the book. And it's all about that idea of like, why do you even have that reaction of like cockroaches are gross and like they're creepy, crawly, and dirty, and like all these beliefs you might have about a cockroach, but it's like, who told you that was true? It's like maybe everyone just thinks that's true, so then it's just true. But it's like all these beliefs, like you can change your beliefs. And the book kind of just goes through all these different scenarios of like, I can't think of a specific example right now. The cockroach one is the most like, shock value to make you think, but all of them are like, how did I even get this belief? Like, I just told myself this is true. And you had an experience that helped you see that a different belief is true, and it completely changed the way you were going about or looking at if it was successful or not. But before, when you had the other belief, you're already looking at things like you failed in a way. Like, I'm already like down for the count. I'm already the behind everyone else, and what are they gonna think type of thing. Like, I'm an amateur, you mentioned. So it's like these beliefs that we hold inside, the expectations we're making for ourselves. Like, we do these things to ourselves, and that's like the craziest thing about it. Like, it's like those spiraling moments too can happen so easily when you don't get out of that kind of mindset, because it's like one thing goes bad, then it's because that belief, because you told yourself it's true.
Yeah, it's the self-sabotage. Yeah, it's the self-sabotage. It's that constant like, well, and like I said, it's because we're so used to that external validation, right? If we don't have someone right next to us telling us that we're doing great, it's hard for us to believe that we are. And that's where the self-sabotage comes in, because then we think, well, my partner didn't tell me I was great. My mom didn't tell me I was great. My customers didn't really respond the way I wanted to. Am I great? And you do that self-doubt, and it goes in the cycle, and you start over and over and over again. It's like an up and a down. It's that high when you do something amazing and everybody gives you the praise. You're like, oh, I need that back. I need people to give me that again, right? When really, in reality, I try to believe in myself. Everything that I do is amazing, even before people know it, even if people don't know it, even if they try it and they're like, it was all right. I don't care what you think. My stuff was great. and I'm going to believe in myself. I'm going to believe in the product. I'm going to believe in what I do, because, right, I'm the one who curates that. And if you don't believe in yourself, if you're not your biggest supporter, if you're not your biggest cheerleader, then how can you expect others to believe in you? It's like the start of confidence, right? When they say how the way that you change your posture or the way that you walk down the street makes a complete difference in the way that you're perceived. And that's the same way when you're presenting yourself in business.
I might have lost you a little bit.
And it's all about like that, the reflection. It's the reflection of how you see yourself, and then, how those people kind of mirror that back to you. When I see people and I meet people, I try to mirror to them that I think that I'm great, that I know what I do is great, that I bring value, and I come, that error, I'm the SHIT, because I bring the stuff. And when I bring that makes people want to mirror that back to me, because they're like, oh, well, she's coming with the energy, right? Like, so it all starts within. If you believe in you, then other people will believe in you too. And then that feeds into your confidence, that feeds into your authenticity, that feeds into your, that imposter syndrome type of vibe where you're not 100% about, who you really are. But if you start to believe that you're that person, right, that you are that person, it's just how They say there's many celebrities out there who started their careers in their 40s and 50s, right? And you start to think to yourself, like, well, who is going to care about somebody starting their career in their late 30s, 40s, 50s? Taraji P. Henson started when she was 38 years old, 36 years old, right? And now she's a huge actress. Many people think like, well, celebrities. But at the end of the day, you're not very much different than that celebrity who went out there and took a chance to put themselves on the line to go get a line or to go get a casting or to go get somebody to put them on the front of the camera. And you think about your pitches, about your business and the things that you want to put in front of people. You're never going to know what will come from that if you don't put yourself out there to just say, hey, look at my stuff. Hey, listen to my idea. Hey, let me just share this with you. Even if nothing comes from it, there will be that one specific time that somebody will say, hey, you know what? That's actually a really great idea. I love that. And then it can move from there. So that really will feed into people, making changes for themselves in their authenticity, but it starts from within. Giving yourself that confidence to believe that, you have that room to make mistakes. You're not going to be perfect. You're not going to always know the right or wrong thing, in the times that maybe they're the most important. But you are a human and you are allowed to have your own idea of yourself. So the way that you think of yourself, the way that you believe in yourself, the way you see yourself and how you present yourself to others, I think makes a huge difference in, how you show up.
It's definitely going back even to why people say when you're being yourself, you can find your tribe, but your tribe can find you as well. Like when you're not being yourself, you're not being authentic, maybe you're even being I would call it fake. Like you're not gonna vibe with the people that are coming to you because you're not putting out the vibes that are true to you. And sometimes the people that are already in your life, you mentioned this in the beginning, maybe the people that are already in your life aren't going to be those people that are vibing with you. And that's okay. The people that will vibe with you will find you and you will find them if you keep being consistently yourself. You can't go back and forth, or it's even going to be confusing for your tribe, your real tribe. They're going to be like, who are you? So if there's one key takeaway that you could share with the audience to just stay true with authenticity, overcoming perfectionism, really leaning into that uniqueness, what could you share with them?
I think the major takeaway from all of it is really just giving yourself that grace. Just giving yourself that grace, that space, trial and error, right? If you give yourself the space, the grace, the time to be able to figure things out, whether that's whatever approach you want to take, those are going to be those moments that really allow you to get from place to place, your next, where you are now to where you want to be, because everything in life takes pivots and it takes flexibility. So if you're expecting things to just go in one straight line, it's not going to happen. And the quicker that you let that ideal go, the easier things will be. And allowing yourself that grace to say, okay, well, maybe I was going to go straight, but now I got to take a left. Maybe now I'm taking a left, I'm taking a right. Now it's now I'm back straight again. Oh, I got to take another detour. I got to go diagonal. All of that is going to help in the long run with allowing people to give themselves that space to step into themselves, because now you're okay with when things do not go your way, when things do not go how you expected, when things are not going in this ideal story that you kind of painted out in your mind, right? Once you kind of allow things to flow in that way, then you can be okay with who you are, how things go when things are not in your control.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today for our second time having you with the Sprout community. And we'll be actually having you back for a panel in November with Will and Ivy. And I think you guys are just going to be a powerhouse panel. So I'm so excited to have you there.
I'm so excited too. I thank you so much for this space and this platform and putting this together. It was great to see you again.
Awesome. Well, to all of our viewers, stay tuned. Every month we're going to be coming out with our podcast, our newest episodes. If you want to see us some more, you can see us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, We have our website, our YouTube channel. So there's so much for you to get all of the Sprout community and summer in life. So see you next time. Bye.